What you got to understand, people, is this. If you've been holding on to if you've had a job more than 2 years, you're losing money.
And that's a great point right there, especially when you're managing your debt, because the faster you pay off things, then the less monthly income you need.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. Yes,
The
yes,
faster you pay things, then you don't need as much money. Let's say you have your car, you have
yes,
your mortgage, for example, you have, like you say, the heat pump in the house, and then the faster you're able to pay things, then it reduces your living expenses, and the
yes,
lower your living expenses, the easier it is to get with retirement and have your
yes,
investment paying for your living expenses, because that's the secret to freeing your time, enjoying
yes,
earning back your time and your freedom. It's having your investment paying for your living expenses, and the faster you pay for that, then the easier it is to achieve. And then also I wanted to mention is one of the steps to do that is find ways to increase your income. Find ways to increase your income, whether it's to regularly asking for a raise, whether it is for a side job, side hustle. If you are single, you definitely want to go for that. If you're single, you have no time for women, have time for your investments, and then the women will follow. They will see your wealth. Maybe it's someone like had a dad like Tony here, so they will see you if you working, taking care of your business, and they will approach you. So that would be easy. But when you're young, if you're in your 20s, focus on increasing your income, doing any side job if you have to, invest that money, reduce your debt, increase your liability, and start thinking about retirement early so that at 35, 40 years old, you're free, you can travel, you can invest that money. While you travel, you can invest that money, and also share that money with the community. Share that money with the causes that you like.
yes. By
uh,
spending in the community.
exactly, spending in the community too, and in many things like you can do, but invest in yourself, invest in your education, learn about financial literacy, learn about how to make more money, and yes, and pay your debt, and then basically reduce your debt, because that's definitely one of the things that's going to guide you towards um, uh, basically early
Uh,
retirement. But you had something you wanted to
yeah,
mention.
yeah, Jason, I wanted to add on that because you brought up a good point about the income, about the job thing. What you got to understand, people, is this: if you've been holding on to if you've had a job more than 2 years, you're losing money. Because think about it, the average job is giving you a 2% raise a year. Okay. Inflation right now is hovering around 5.5%. That means you're not getting a raise from that job. You're losing money, right? And that, so bring it and talk about inflation, because with all this investing and all the wealth building, we need to understand how inflation works. Now,
Hmm.
the market on average has gone up since 1820, 10% every year. This is how I choose my funds. I look at the funds, and you know how they'll say, oh, the past year went up this percentage in 5 years and 10 years. I don't look at those numbers. I look at from inception, how high is it going, how much is it going up. That's the most important number because that is generally where the fund will be. I buy funds that are low double digits or high one digits, like say 8 or 9% and up. If it's making that much money for me, that's above inflation. Another thing too, you know how to invest. Okay, great. You're investing well, really nice. But you also need to know, how do you pull money out of your investment accounts? Here's your portfolios. Here's the thing. What you do is this: you pull 4% plus inflation. So right now, if inflation is at say 5.5%, right? I'm sorry, you're going to pull 5.5%, right? So some years you'll pull less. But keep in mind now, the market is going up every year, right? 10%. So if you take about 4 or 5% out of your portfolio every year to live on, guess what? You're still making that 6%. You're still making that money. Too many people pull all kinds of money out their portfolio and end up losing money because they don't understand the percentages. They're pulling like 15, 20, even 30% out of their portfolio every year. And then they're wondering, oh my goodness, my money's drying up. No, do that 4% for each portfolio. So if you have four portfolios and each of them worth $100,000, do the math, right? 4%, you're pulling 4,000 from each one of those. That's not the only income you're earning, right? That's $16,000. If you're getting like any like Social Security in some cases. I don't know what they call it in Canada, but US they call it Social Security or pensions or whatever. You can tally that money up. Your portfolios are still making money and you're living good. You want to
Mm.
take a vacation? You might draw a little bit extra. Inflation happens, no problem. You just take a little bit more to cover for inflation, but you're still making money. You have to know how to use that portfolio, not just invest in it.
Mm. That's a great point right here. That's actually a point I haven't been considered yet. And again, that people, that's what I'm saying, people. That's what I'm saying. I'm 35 years old. I've, I have some life
You
experiences that
have a
are
youth.
painful. I have some life experiences that are painful, but I'm just 35 years old. You know, we can learn from other people. You can learn from other people's mistakes. You can learn from other people's success. You can learn from others people's life experience. Now, all
Yes.
that to say that people, at the beginning of the podcast, if you're new here, you haven't watched the podcast, rewind it back on some other time. We said it. Smart people learn from their mistakes, but these mistakes are painful. Painful. There are some mistakes. And I'll make another podcast of the mistakes I've done financially and what I've learned so far. But that's another day. That's another topic for another day. But these mistakes are painful. Now,
Yes.
we have someone here willing to share his time, his wife almost due. You can get a call. We'll have to shut down the stream because
Yeah.
the water might break.
Yes.
And he's taking his time to share some knowledge. And that is something that I have not thought about, Tony.
Yes. Yes.
Building your portfolio. And because me, the way I thought about it, honestly,
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
just the dividends, focusing on the dividends and then one reinvesting those dividends. And then
Yes.
one day, let's say the number that you need to be comfortable to have, like, let's say if you want 4,000, 5,000 a month to be
Yes.
retired, then
Hmm.
that is equal to a portfolio size of $2 million, let's say, or
Hmm.
maybe 3 million. And then if you get to that number, and then you just collect the dividend at the end of the month and just leave the money there so that it can appreciate over time.
Hmm.
But that's something that I didn't consider because some on one of my other portfolios, it's not dividend, it's just for like growth. It's a growth portfolio, like companies like
Yes.
Tesla,
Hmm.
companies that are like, and these portfolios, they don't pay dividends. So you're going to have to think of a way to pull out the money and leave some a lot more of it
So
left
that
so
way
that
to
it can
grow.
accumulate over time.
Yes.
And if you have a smart way of doing so, then yes. And I'm going to actually rewind this part back so I can better understand it and look into it, because that's a concept I haven't heard of before. And that's
Yes.
a great point. Especially if someone is building a portfolio that is not paying dividend. And then, because there's a lot of people who do that, there's a lot of people, they're not necessarily looking at the dividend, but they're looking at the big number, like the 2 3
Yes.
million, and
Yes.
then using that as a way to pull out their money for retirement. and
Hmm.
and I hear some stories where baby boomers, at first, the first year, first 2 3 years of their retirement, they get excited, they put a lot
Yes.
of money down, and then they get to a point where that money that they spend the entire life saving up, it's
It's
starting to
gone.
dry low, and then they're having to cut down on their expenses, moving to a smaller condo, like start looking things differently around here, because that money may, if you live 20 25 years,
Yes.
that money may not last that long. So if
Yes.
you have a smart way of pulling out that money,
Yes.
combining it with like government incomes, because you're collecting pensions, or now for millennials, we have no pension, but it's going to be TFSC,
Mhm.
RSSP in Canada, and I think in the States, I think Roth IRA, or
Yeah, we got Roth. We got, well, the different. There's different ones. Roth, 401k,
mm,
IRA. Yeah, we got different
exactly.
ones.
But yeah,
Yes.
that's again, thank you for sharing this knowledge. You drop a lot of gold knowledge here, but this
Oh,
one
thanks.
definitely went straight deep. If you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here where you can find the entire Wealth Engineering podcast. Click right here, and we'll see you on the next one. If you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here where you can find the entire Wealth Engineering podcast. Click right here, and we'll see you on the next one.